Hello, friends and followers of Ear to the Ground Music. My name is Greg Jones. I'm one of the co-editors on the site, and I do a good bit of the work here on our YouTube channel. And I just wanted to make a quick video where I talk about some advice that I have for people who want to send music to blogs and you just don't really know where to start. A lot of times it can be intimidating when you go to a site that you like and you click on their submission guidelines and it seems like there's a million different things that you need to do and every blog is different and it's just overwhelming. 5 minutes into the process and you think, ugh, is it really worth it? Especially when several of them will probably say no thank you. Um, I'm going to give some specific tips here that are for all blogs, not just Ear to the Ground. And so these are just some I should say general tips for submitting. But at the end of the video, I'm going to talk more specifically about our site. So if you're just looking for a scatter shot, watch the first 4 points, and then at the end I'll talk about our process. So first of all, narrow your genre. I know everybody wants to think like, oh, well, my music is 10 different things. It's so innovative and creative and wonderful, and it might be innovative and creative and wonderful, but you still should narrow your genre, both for bloggers who are concerned with things like genre and categorizing and putting music together, but also for the listener. People need to know generally what category you're talking about. So there's a million subgenres, and I'm not saying you have to go into a 6 word long description, but generally speaking, if it's country or it's hip hop or it's jazz or it's bluegrass, find those things, whether or not it's traditional bluegrass or progressive bluegrass, that will matter to some blogs, but for the general audience, you want to make sure you're giving people a sense of what they're getting into when they're clicking on your stuff. So I would actually argue if it's an email submission, you put the genre in the title of the email. Make sure that it's there, because if I'm running a folk site, if you have hip hop in that email title, I'm probably not even gonna open it. So in the process of narrowing this down, you are going to save yourself a lot of time and trouble, because you'll look at each site and say, okay, they don't even accept this genre that we are. So knowing your sound, that's super helpful. And if you're a fusion, if you're some kind of genre that's a little bit of two things, that's okay. But don't try to have a scatter shot and say, well, I'm for everyone. You're probably not. Just musically, you're just not. Very few artists can cross over to 2 or 3, let alone several. So the second point that I would make is that you should have working links. I know that sounds probably condescending, and I don't mean it that way. What I mean is, if I do open your email, when I click on a link, whether it's SoundCloud or Spotify, it should work. It shouldn't be embargoed. It shouldn't have a password. It should work. I'm probably not going to give you a whole lot of time. I've got a whole stack of emails. I've got a whole stack of submissions. So I need it to be something very good right away. I, I'm sorry, but that's just the way it goes. Um, I don't have time for a 10-minute build up to your 20-minute progressive jazz song. There are some people who love that. There are. And if that's what you do, don't hear me as saying you shouldn't make music the way that you do, or you need to do something fundamentally different. But know the people you're submitting to. And if you are submitting to a progressive jazz website who loves that kind of thing, they are going to listen to it. But when you are submitting to generally speaking, any old music website, they're not going to have the time to process. We get a lot of submissions where people will say, make sure you listen to the whatever timestamp, 3-minute timestamp. With 3 minutes means if you haven't hooked me in the first 20 or 30 seconds, it's going to be really hard for me to justify sticking around till I get to the 3-minute mark. If you've done something really remarkable at the 3-minute mark, that's great. I'm happy for your song, but our people that are reading our site and listening to our playlists may not stick around that long. So we need things that are instantly interesting for whatever reason. I hope that makes sense and doesn't sound like I'm being a jerk about it. I just want to convey that you need to have working links so that people can click through and get to your stuff as quickly as possible. Number 3, this is a huge one, and I don't know why this isn't addressed more often, and that is we need images. Now, I don't mean you have to go out and pay thousands of dollars for a professional photographer. I mean working images. They don't have to be in the submission per se, but they have to be available. Like if I send you an email that says, hey, I really like this, I want to cover your music, great. Send me pictures. And send me pictures of your face. I know that, again, probably sounds simplistic, but people who are visiting a website respond to faces. And it doesn't mean you have to be particularly good looking. It doesn't mean you have to be particularly trendy or any of that. They just respond to humans. And so, as cool as it is to maybe have a picture of the desert or a picture of a mountain that you climbed at some point in your life, like that is critical imagery to your story, perhaps. But it's just going to look like the desert or a mountain to somebody who sees that in an article. People respond to faces. It's in our statistics. I've seen it. People respond to faces because faces pull the reader into the story. So now other bloggers might say, no, I want something innovative. I want something with bright colors. I want something with creative angles, whatever. They might be different, but more often than not, if you look at coverage, you're going to see that bands and artists who are featured, it's a portrait. It's of their face. So even if you just get a friend to take a couple pictures on a cell phone and you put them through an Instagram filter to make them look how you want, or you don't even have to put a filter on it. If it's a good enough image, then just use it. But the key for me is that you're representing your brand, if you will, your music with something visual. A lot of coverage is either going to be one or maybe 2 or 3 artists in the article. So from my perspective as an editor, I want to have those artists represented, right? I want to have those artists on the article so that people are compelled to click on it, and then once they click on it and they read about you or they hear your music, they can associate that with your image, and that will create a more lasting connection. So have images. They don't need to be fancy, but useful. And then the last one is make sure you have a quick and easy bit of contact information. Maybe it's an email, maybe it's a Twitter handle, some way so that the person who you sent the music to can be in contact with you. Maybe they need a different image. Maybe they need a different resolution of the image. Maybe they need a different link. Maybe they want to ask you for permission to upload. Any of those kinds of things. Delaying is not great. So anything, I'm not saying you have to be obsessively on your phone to respond to every blogger's inquiry. I'm not being overly, I don't want you to overcommit to this process. But what I do want you to do is make sure that when you've got them on the hook, they finally said, yes, I want to write about your music. That's huge, right? If you're starting out, you're promoting music, you finally have somebody who's interested, and now you go silent, right? You're like not there. If you are launching new music, that is what you're doing, right? If you are launching new music, that is your kind of job, really. That is kind of your job. The writing music was part of it, producing it was part of it, performing it is always part of it, but promoting, either you're paying someone to do it or you're doing it yourself. And if you're doing it yourself, responding to these kinds of things to ensure that coverage goes out, to ensure that coverage gets spread out, to make sure that people are reading it and interacting with it, that's all part of the process. So yeah, make sure that you're easy to get a hold of, and that will allow the coverage that you do get to take your sound farther. So as for ear to the ground, one thing that I would say, I'll try not to talk too long about this, but we use submithub.com. Some of you are probably already familiar with SubmitHub. Yes, it monetizes the process, and I know that some artists and certainly some PR firms strongly dislike it for that. But you can do free subs. As long as I'm still kicking, there will always be standard subs for ear to the ground music. So you don't need to pay us anything. And if you do want to do a premium submission, we don't make a lot, but it does help you get feedback and can potentially accelerate the process. With standard subs, we take a little bit longer to process them, and we don't necessarily, we still give them the same quality of coverage, but the only difference in terms of the money from, is if you do premium submission, you're guaranteed to get feedback from us. That's the big difference. But one thing that happens to us a lot now is we will get an emailed submission, and we're going to tell the submitter, thank you, but please send it to us on SubmitHub. Because what SubmitHub does, it gives us a nice feed of all the new music that's coming in. Right now, there's probably 80 or 100 songs waiting for me to go in and process. And I will spend time listening to those and considering them. And we get this constantly. It's a constant stream of new music, which is great if you're a music lover like me. And I'm really excited to do it, and I enjoy that part of the process. But I need you to know, as the person watching this video, that we're a medium-sized blog and we're getting this many submissions. So you can imagine larger blogs are getting even more. And you want to make sure that you're meeting their submission guidelines if they have tricky ones. And if they don't, a service like SubmitHub, where you just kind of send out your song to multiple people all at once, that could be worth your time. Like anything else, it's time or money, right? You either spend the time going through all the different websites to meet their submission process, or you use something like SubmitHub and hit multiple at once. But my advice for submitting to Ear to the Ground specifically is make sure you're one of the big three. You're either folk, indie rock, or Americana. We do other stuff if it's tangentially related, then we might do it. But one of the big three genres, and give us something in that quick pitch that's going to key us into what we're about to hear. We'll be excited to listen to it, and know that our approval rate statistically over years now is about, I think, 7 to 9%. So if one of your songs isn't a fit, I would say keep at it and pay attention to the feedback that we give. Maybe your sound is not a fit for what we tend to curate overall, and that happens, and we might be able to suggest another site that could work. But also know that there are people all the time who submit a song or two or three or five that we say no thank you, and then there's one that we love and we do feature. So I would say my encouragement to you would be keep at it. If there's a site that you're sending your music to and they say no thank you a few times, keep at it, because you might eventually have a sound or a concept. Like sometimes there will be a song that sounds really nice, and I think that's a really nice song. And I listen to the words and I think, I don't understand, or I don't connect. And that's hard for me to write about if I don't connect with with the whole song. I want to be able to pour my heart and soul into covering the music And if you read, hopefully you've read some of my writing on music, and I genuinely believe in the songs that I write about. I don't do it to go through the motions. I do it because I love the music that we cover. I love the genres that we cover. I love a lot of times the lyrical themes, and I love the total composition. I wouldn't be covering it if I only thought one part of it was good. I would say no thank you. If I said yes, it means I dig the whole thing. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully this was a little bit encouraging. That's my goal, is to encourage and inform. And if you have questions about the process, whether it's specific to our site or just generally speaking, or advice, that kind of thing, go ahead and leave it in the comments, and I will certainly try to get back to you as soon as I can. And good luck with your music. I hope you're making things that you can believe in, things that you enjoy and appreciate yourself, and that can be a blessing to the world. Thanks so much for watching the video. My name again is Greg Jones. I'm the co-editor of Ear to the Ground Music, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.